Hey guys, you are listening to Alex Callan on Matter of Faction. Today we have Adam Finlay, the guitarist from Wildheart, on the line. Adam, how's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. So it's a couple of weeks away from the release of your debut album, Global Crisis. How are you feeling for the release?
Pretty excited, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, so I'm very keen for people to hear it.
It has kind of already been getting quite a lot of hype. I mean, I feel the amount that I've seen the album cover online, I feel like the album should have been out by now, kind of thing. Like it's been getting posted everywhere, which is pretty rad.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a little bit more buzz than there has been in the past with stuff that we've done. But yeah, like we did spend a lot of time working on all this new material, and I think there's definitely like we've kind of tapped into something that wasn't there before. That's kind of fueled a lot of uh, the musical and lyrical direction over the last couple of years. So
Is it, I know it can quite often be hard, but if you had to pinpoint what it is that you guys tapped into, what would you put it down to?
I think uh, it was sort of synonymous with Rising Tide, which we put out a couple of years ago now. And essentially, like we sort of we had a track there, and Axel came in with some lyrics, and it was about Indigenous deaths in custody, and like didn't pull any punches lyrically, and we were like, dude, like this is really heavy stuff, but it felt it was something that he really wanted to talk about as an Indigenous man himself. So but the general response to the song was really positive, and we've kind of felt after we put it out, like I think we should keep talking about real shit, because up until that point we kind of just been doing sort of sad boy lyrics, which we still do. We still got a couple of sad songs on the album, but I don't know, we definitely felt like maybe there was something more to it. And then sort of with 20, I guess 2020 as a whole gave us a lot of content to write about. There's a lot of emotions sort of flying when we're putting together the lyrical side of things. So yeah, I think it's just something we kind of collectively decided, let's talk more about bigger issues.
Absolutely. And, it does really shine through on the album. I mean, especially, at times it's quite in your face with the sample of Bill Shillingsworth from Q&A. And then
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
other times it is, quite actually subtle and you'll listen to something that Axel says and, rewind it to go, oh, what's he actually saying there kind of thing. But,
Yeah.
I did pick up quite a political agenda. And as you said, quite, um, for Indigenous rights and against certain things that have happened in Indigenous history, which I thought was quite an interesting take. I don't often hear that in Australian metal.
No, I think it was probably something that it definitely has been spoken about, but I felt like um especially with Axe being Indigenous has kind of really brought it to the forefront. And like, yeah, like I was saying, Rising Tide was basically the stepping off point, and then the next song we put out was Backburner, which was kind of synonymous with like land rights, climate change. Obviously the bushfires were a big part of that, and he was kind of trying to bring in stuff about how his people have been ignored when it comes to land management and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it kind of just led us down this path, and we were obviously watching things sort of unfold uh, across the world with COVID and sort of the political response and all this type of thing. And I know we just kind of tapped into the emotions we were feeling at the time. And even when you've just got a song sitting there without any lyrics, it's still kind of indicative of an emotion. So sort of try to like tap into something like Show Me What It's Like to Be Worthless is obviously super melodic. So like, okay, this is probably something that we can kind of go back to more what we used have done in the past, which is obviously a very emotional song, very personal song. And then you've got stuff like Out for Blood, which is coming out on Friday, which is just super in your face, um, you know, fuck the status quo rhetoric, basically.
Yeah. Like I do feel as if, the entire album is very melodic throughout it. in a sense though. Like it is quite a tone that you guys kind of go for.
Yeah. When we started the band, like we only had like one sort of defined thing, and that was we wanted it to be heavy and we wanted it to be melodic. And even though I think over the years we've definitely gravitated towards becoming heavier, it still hasn't lost the sense of melody. Like I've always kind of gravitated towards more melodic music. So that's obviously still going to be there in a big form, but it's, at the same time, I'm wanting to kind of push things a little bit more in terms of the aggressive side of things. But I think like, because I've done so much of the writing in the last couple of years, it's more of my roots kind of shining through a bit more, I think.
Is that in terms of the stuff on Global Crisis?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of got to tap into some stuff that I haven't really done before musically, so it's been fun.
I suppose, what kind of stuff did you try out that you hadn't done before?
It's kind of hard to say because so much of it happens in the moment, but I think when I sort of am writing, my best stuff usually comes to me when I'm not trying to write heavy material, ironically.
Yeah.
Like it'll just be like a moment of like, oh, that sounds cool. But I definitely harken back to some of the albums that I got into when I was, in my late teens, like early Architects and Bury Your Dead, early TGI, all that sort of stuff. Obviously influenced by many other things now, but that's always kind of at the root of it, I think, is just, that.
Actually picked that up while listening. It does kind of have that mid to late, post-hardcore, early metalcore tone to it a lot of the time, especially with some of the like, high-pitched riffs and things like that. It was kind of a bit of a rad change up. And, it's always weird feeling nostalgic and familiar with something upon first listen. So, it was really kind of cool to incorporate those elements.
Yeah, and I find like I always come back to them as well. It's kind of just, I don't want to say comfortable, but I'll write something and then I'll be like, oh, that does sound old school, but I think it's got enough kind of modernality to it to keep it fresh.
Absolutely. It's definitely kind of that middle point where it's your own spin, but I suppose if Global Crisis came out in 2010, it would have been number one immediately, kind of thing. Like no question.
It
just fits into that.
Absolutely.
So perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel a lot of people kind of be like myself and, like you, as you said, from a writing perspective where, it kind of hits home with certain sounds that you haven't really heard in a long time, which is rad.
Yeah. And like I always try to, like, I want to play stuff that I would want to listen to. So obviously it's gonna filter down a certain path,
And I suppose bringing it back to, how you were saying all of your stuff's quite melodic based. I was interested in how that works in terms of constructing Global Crisis as an album, because,
Yep.
From the get-go, your melody kind of intertwines to be quite emotional and a lot of builds. And a lot of songs have the intensity that most bands would reserve for the album's closer. And it kind of comes in with that at the start. Is it hard while writing to go, oh shit, we need to keep upping the ante there, kind of thing? Because it as an album works perfectly.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was a difficult process.
As I was putting the songs together, as I was demoing stuff, I did always keep in the back of my mind, like, what would potentially sit where on a record. And I had there were a few different sort of ideas early on, of kind of what I wanted to do. Cause I did have originally, like, for example, the first track and False Hope were originally one song. But it was sort of one, it was sort of one average song, and then I kind of took a few different ideas and went one way and did one song, and then went another way and did another, and that kind of was like, okay, now I've got an opener and a closer. And then I ended up writing Show Me not long after, and I was like, this would be cool to do just because it's different. Like it's, so I was kind of thinking like, you know, a lot of albums like to do big, slow finishes. And then, you know, I was like, we could do something just kind of a little bit left of field, but it's definitely like the middle part's the trickiest thing to get right, because you've got all these different songs and you got to think how they flow into each other. But yeah, it was just something I kept in the back of my mind, because I personally like it when albums do this. I like it when they take you on a bit of a journey, because if it's you know, all sort of front loaded, you tend to forget about the second half of the album. And at the same time, you don't want to put all the good stuff at the end. So it was just a balancing act, really. And that was also a lot of discussions with the other boys as well, kind of getting a bit of feedback on what we thought might work. And yeah, it was just, yeah, I was like, from the get-go, I was like, all right, how's this going to work?
Yeah, it's cool to hear that. I suppose it's a active thought while you're writing, in a sense, because, you know, everyone in every industry, as I'm doing interviews, I'll already kind of know what I'm going to quote in a big sense. So, you know, it is kind of interesting how you can go, okay, this is going to be perfect for the middle to bring it back up in terms of time signature and pace. And yeah, it's really cool. And there's obviously been a lot of effort put into Global Crisis.
Absolutely. Like it there was a lot of like, oh fuck, is this all right? Like, is this going to be good? Do these songs suck? And you know, there was a lot of obsessing over just little details and stuff. But you know, that's kind of the good thing with having, like, you know, your bandmates there, is kind of like a, hey, listen to this. Do you think it's shit? And they'll be like, no, it's really cool. I'm like, oh, sick. Thank God.
Yeah.
So it's very collaborative.
I feel that's why so many people get the impression that musicians are quite often dicks, to be honest. And it is because, you know, they are in that cutting room floor so often, where they have to be honest and go, nah, that doesn't work. And it is kind of a personality trait that can be difficult, especially in a studio with your mates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I've sort of learned as well is you got to know when to call it time, and you've got to learn to drop the ego a bit, because sometimes you might be really like, you just think, I've got like, this is so sick, I love it. You get into the jam space and it's just not vibing with everyone. So it's like, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board and figure out how to spruce it up a bit. And sometimes you might write something and everyone's like, yeah, stick, signed, sealed, done.
Was Global Crisis kind of easy in that regard?
Fairly, yeah. There are a few songs which took more work than others. Ironically, Backburner, the first track we put out, was one of the last songs I wrote. Yeah, wow. It was like nearing the end of what I'd sort of allocated for myself as writing time. I was like, I need 2 more songs to make this a suitable length. So I just locked myself away and belted out Backburner, and I think maybe Out for Blood. Yeah, I was just like, I'm just gonna just was like, I have to do this, I don't have a choice. But yeah, and that was just one of those moments where, like, I did it, I sent it, they're like, yeah, that sounds sick, and we went with it. Axel quickly put together some lyrics. I'm assuming he had some ideas, but he's like, oh, I got like, that song fits these lyrics really well. And then, yeah, other ones, like there's another song on the album called No Peace. That was like one of the first songs I wrote for the album, but it just for some reason took a lot of tweaking and like backwards and forwards. So it's interesting how it kind of unfolds. But you know, looking back, I definitely enjoyed doing it.
Absolutely. It would be such a, you know, hard and tedious process at times, but then looking back when you've actually got the album 3 weeks from release now, you know, congratulations. It would be a pretty incredible feeling.
Yeah, thank you. We haven't done an album yet, so you know, it's definitely like you know, a bit of a bucket list thing, you know, regardless of how well or not well it does. It's like it takes a lot of time to put together 13 tracks that are, you know, all decent. So yeah,
Definitely.
looking very much looking forward to it.
It's come together, yeah, really well. And I know there is a lot of excitement, especially with a couple of shows in the works. Unify Forever, that's huge.
Yeah.
And I also write
Yeah.
Hysteria, so I have to mention Halloween Hysteria as well, because that's a lineup.
Which we should have been playing in like a week or something originally.
Yeah, so that one's been postponed for a couple of months.
April, I think it is now.
Okay,
but yeah, that was sick because that was something we'd always had our eyes on, and we'd never quite. We just didn't quite have enough notoriety, and then not long after, I think maybe our second single, we got an email asking if we wanted to play, and saw the lineup, and we're like, "Yeah, hell yeah, brother, let's do it." And then Unify, we thought that was fake, to be honest. When we first got the email, we're like, no way. Turns out it was legit. So yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing, to be honest, because none of us thought we were on the radar.
Does it seem like a scam in a sense of, you know, we wanted you to play at this festival, you're going to get this much, or is it just
no, it was like we hadn't even thought about playing like that as a possibility. We just kind of were like, I guess we didn't think we were big enough, good enough, just all those sort of things, you know, kind of self-deprecating. But yeah, so that was pretty rewarding kind of moment for us. So super psyched about Unify whenever that happens.
Yeah, because
January or April.
An insane opportunity, and you know, the amount of bands that have got signed after their sets at Unify and things like that are pretty insane. But it's kind of an interesting point, I guess, because it's quite often you come across small time bands that haven't put the time or effort into, you know, their social media channels, where certain bands won't even have band members attached to their social media, and to get a random email out of the blue, I suppose it kind of shows like, set yourself up and who knows what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, you know, keep chipping away.
That's it.
There's, you know, write good music and eventually someone will pay attention.
Well, as I keep saying, it is 3 weeks till the release of Global Crisis. If you've tuned in late, we've been on the line with Adam from Wildheart. Thank you so much for having a chat, Adam. It's been rad.
Oh, of course, man.
Best of luck with the release of the album. I'm sure it's going to be huge.
Thank you very much.